Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a grand theft auto charge. We're using a real-world case study from Placer County, California, to map out every single step of the legal maze that kicks in the moment an arrest is made.
So, a car gets stolen, the police find a suspect, and they make an arrest. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, what happens next is anything but. This is the starting gun for a really complex, high-stakes legal process.
Before we could even start to follow the timeline of an arrest, we've got to understand the charge itself. So what exactly is grand theft auto in the eyes of the law?
Okay, so in California, it all comes down to Penal Code 487A. And inside this law, there are two absolutely critical pieces. First, the car has to be worth more than $950. And second, the prosecution has to prove that the person intended to permanently take it away from the owner.
Let's just focus on that number for a second. $950. I mean, that sounds pretty low, and that's exactly the point. Think about it. Almost any car that actually runs is worth more than that. This low number is the reason most car thefts in California get slapped with the very serious charge of grand theft right away.
So that word intent is everything. The law draws a really big, bright line between grand theft auto and a lesser charge called joyriding. For GTA, you have to have the intent to keep the car forever. Joyriding, that's just taking it for a quick spin without asking. And that distinction is huge. One is usually a felony, the other can be just a misdemeanor.
But here's a twist. Even if you're charged with grand theft auto, does that automatically mean it's a felony? The answer is no, and this is where we get into a really interesting legal idea called a wobbler.
A wobbler is a crime that can kind of wobble back and forth between being a misdemeanor or a felony, and a prosecutor will look at a whole list of things to decide which way to go. Does the person have a criminal record? What are the specifics of the theft? Was anyone threatened or tricked? Was the car damaged? All of this gets weighed to decide how serious the charge is going to be.
All right, so we get what the crime is. Now let's jump back to the timeline, right to the moment of the arrest, and what happens immediately after.
You know, that first 24 hours is just a complete whirlwind. In a place like Placer County, the sheriff's department swoops in, they make the arrest, they take the suspect to jail. And that's when the formal booking starts. Fingerprints, mugshot, a mountain of paperwork, and then a bail amount gets set based on a schedule the court already has. It all happens so fast, and you can imagine how terrifying it must be.
And this brings us to the very first major decision point for the person who's been arrested and for their family, what to do about bail.
And the stakes become crystal clear really fast. For a felony grand theft auto charge in Placer County, bail can be set as high as $50,000. A number like that just hits you. It tells you exactly how serious this is, and it makes the entire situation incredibly real.
Now, it's worth pointing out that our source for this information is a bail bonds agency. So from their perspective, posting bail and doing it as fast as you possibly can is one of the most important strategic moves a person can make. And here's their thinking on why getting out quickly matters so much. For one, it lets the person get back to their job, to their family. But from a legal perspective, and this is the big one, it gives them the time and space to actually fight the case. You can meet with your lawyer, help track down evidence, and get ready for court, all without the unbelievable stress of being locked up.
So beyond that immediate crisis of trying to make bail, you've got the long-term shadow of what a felony conviction could actually mean. And let's be clear, if this case ends with a felony conviction, the penalties are not a slap on the wrist. We're talking about consequences that can completely change the direction of someone's life.
First, there's the very real possibility of losing your freedom. A felony grand theft auto conviction in California can land you in state prison for up to 3 years.
And on top of that, you're looking at huge financial penalties, a fine that can go all the way up to $10,000. The combination of prison time and a massive fine, that is a devastating 1-2 punch. But the punishment, it doesn't just end when the prison sentence is over or the fine is paid. A felony record creates these ripple effects. They call them collateral consequences. We're talking about lifelong struggles, like having a hard time finding a job, facing serious immigration problems, losing professional licenses, and getting hit much harder for any crime in the future.
Okay, so we've looked at the charge, and we've seen just how serious the consequences can be. So, how do you actually fight a case like this in court? This is where we get into building a legal defense.
You have to remember, an arrest is not a conviction. There are a lot of ways a defense can go. An attorney could argue there was no intent to permanently steal it, that this was just joyriding, or maybe the owner actually said it was okay to borrow the car. Other common strategies? Mistaken identity. They got the wrong person. Or maybe it's a false accusation because of a personal fight. Or you can just argue that the prosecutor doesn't have enough evidence to prove their case.
So when we pull back and look at the big picture, it's pretty clear that the path through the justice system is anything but a straight line. It's a long, winding road with a lot of critical forks along the way.
Yeah, it all starts with just one single act, but from that one moment, this incredibly complex legal journey just starts to unfold. It's a path that's defined by these high-stakes money decisions, like bail, the constant threat of really severe consequences, and the absolute need for a smart, strategic defense.
And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. For a serious charge like this, where does the path to justice actually begin? Does it start at the scene of the crime? Does it start in that jail cell with that critical decision about bail? Or does it only really start once you finally step foot in the courtroom? There's no simple answer, and that really highlights the immense complexity of the whole system.